Now, in today's segment, we are sitting down with some very, very important individuals in our community. We're going to let them introduce themselves. And, gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Before we get right into it, can we go around and everyone kind of introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Coleman, Mr. Mitchell, and then Mr. Stiles? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy, for having me on this panel. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Julian Coleman. I live in Carrboro, North Carolina. I work for Lindsey Insurance and Financial Services. We're out of Raleigh, North Carolina. See, I've been in the motorcycle community myself since 1996 or so. I've been riding just nonstop since then. I've just been worked at a motorcycle shop for a while. What got me into the insurance industry was just kind of my knowledge and my experience in the past of being in accidents myself, and just being able to help people and really just share information that otherwise wouldn't be accessible to people kind of in our community. So I found an opportunity to do that, and again, thank you for having me on here.
I'm Derek Mitchell. I go by ScootA. Been riding for about 33 years now, nonstop. It was literally in my DNA, I believe. Matter of fact, I'm up here with my father now. He's the one that got me into motorcycle riding. Actually had me ride motorcycles before I was walking. Riding with him. I am a motorcycle safety instructor for the MSF. I teach just about all the courses from the basic ride course to the ARC, military sport bike. I'm also a trainer. I do help out over at Cycle Max of Wilson, North Carolina, president of a motorcycle club that is nationwide, and average about anywhere from 45 to 55,000 miles a year. On the current bike I'm on, I've had it for about 7 months, and it's already got 40,000 miles on it.
My name is Tyler Stiles. I'm the North Carolina attorney with Tom McGrath's Motorcycle Law Group. We are located in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and now Georgia. I am located in Raleigh. My office is up in North Raleigh on 540. It looks like I'm the baby of the bunch. I've been riding about 8 years. Got 3 or 4 motorcycles around the house at this point. My wife rides as well. My job consists of representing folks who have been injured as a result of a motorcycle collision. And we also, within our firm, a portion of the proceeds, the legal fees that come in, finance our lobbying efforts in the various states that we're in. Basically, we're able to go promote motorcyclists' interests at the General Assembly without charging for that. We have an organization in Virginia called Virginia Coalition of Motorcyclists that has a really successful lobbying record. I'm with CBA ABATE in North Carolina. I'm the registered state lobbyist. I work under the legislative director promoting motorcycle interests. And our South Carolina office also works hand in hand with SC ABATE. So that's sort of the background of what I've got going on, and I hope to be able to lend some wisdom to the panel today.
Awesome. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of background experience on the series with us tonight, and we're just going to get right into it. There is a question in the community, believe it or not. The question is, can I ride a motorcycle without insurance? We're going to talk about tonight some things that you may or may not know. So let's get on into it. Attorney Stiles, can you expound on the laws, particularly in our area, of having motorcycle insurance?
Sure. So in North Carolina, it is required if you're going to operate any vehicle on the roadways that it's got financial responsibility is the term the general statute uses. The statute is NCGS 20-313A. And basically what it means is if you are operating a motor vehicle on the roadways without insurance coverage on a ticketable offense, it's a class 3 misdemeanor, I believe. It's considered a compliance offense in North Carolina, which means more often than not, DA's office, this is the only ticket that you get. If you go down and you show the DA you are now in compliance, you've put insurance on the bike, or the car, whatever it may be. A lot of times they'll drop that ticket for you. So it's not a huge charge. It's really something they want to make sure that everybody's riding around with insurance. Where you'll run into trouble is on the civil side. If you have been in a collision that you've caused and you don't have insurance coverage, now you're going to be personally responsible for property damage to your bike, property damage to the other person's vehicle, and if they've suffered any kind of bodily injury, you could be on the hook for that individually. Their insurance company, if they've got insurance that covers their damages or their injuries, they could turn around and pursue you in a collections action to try and recoup that money. The other thing you've got is if you have no insurance on your vehicle and you are in a crash that's your fault, a lot of times the DA will not drop that traffic violation that they've given you if they can't show that you had insurance. A lot of times if you say you rear end somebody, you're in a small fender bender, no real injuries, nothing like that, but you do have insurance on your bike or car, you can go down to the DA and you can present a letter from the insurance carrier that says all the claims have been handled, property damage has been sorted out. Typically the DAs will let that case go as well because they don't have any interest in pursuing a claim that's been handled in the civil realm. So those are the benefits to having insurance on your bike if you've caused a wreck. If you are hit by somebody and you don't have insurance, there may not be any money available to compensate you for your property damage or for your bodily injury. We'll talk about a little bit later. I don't want to necessarily pigeonhole that in here, but that's the biggest concern is if you are injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, you don't have the right insurance, you could be left significantly out of pocket for those damages. So
that's a lot of great information, and we can be sure that we know that there's individuals that, upon listening to that information, Attorney Stiles definitely will want to take adhere to it because we hear it all the time. Mr. Coleman, can you chime in on what exactly is motorcycle insurance and maybe the types of insurance that you can share with us?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to piggyback off of what Tyler was saying as well. About the importance of having, insurance as far as that goes. In the insurance industry, there's things that we protect. And when you're buying motorcycle insurance, car insurance, vehicle insurance, in order to be compliant with the statute that Tyler was speaking about earlier, there's really two components to it. The major component that I like to bring up is that liability coverage, which Tyler was kind of touching on there at the end. Liability coverage is how your insurance company protects your current assets and your future income. So let's think about what Tyler said. If you don't have insurance, you cause an accident and somebody is hurt, you are held responsible for that. They'll do that through collections. They'll do that through garnishment of wages. So they're going to ask you, do you have a home? Do you have retirement? What kind of things can we liquidate prior to going after you through collections and such? So by having that liability insurance, that coverage on there, your insurance company will step in on your behalf and pay anything you are held liable for, whether it's bodily injury, as Tyler was saying, property damage. In North Carolina, those numbers are expressed in three different numbers. You've probably all seen them before on our insurance bills. In North Carolina, the state minimum for liability is $30,000/$60,000/$25,000. Of course, if you've never been in an accident, those numbers mean nothing to you. But those first two numbers there are talking about bodily injury that you are held liable for. Keep in mind, this is for passengers on your vehicle as well. I myself have been in an instance where a passenger on the back of my Kawasaki was thrown, and the only way that her attorney told her that she could recover was to basically sue my law policy, my insurance policy. So again, this not only covers people who aren't on your bike, who aren't in another vehicle, but they do also protect you from liability from your passengers as well. Those first two numbers are going to be maximum limits in the state of North Carolina. If it's 30,000 there, if that person's injuries, lost wages, court costs go over $30,000, you're going to be held liable for it. That number in the middle is $60,000, and there's multiple people involved in the accident. their combined injuries cannot be over $60,000. And then that last number there is for property damage. That's to fix, you know, the other motorcycle you hit, the vehicle you hit, the fence you went through, whatever real property you damaged. In North Carolina, that minimum is $25,000. So again, right there, you can kind of see that those minimums that the state require are relatively low, considering if you just alone look at the property damage of the $25,000 that's required. You know, most of these motorcycles out here, you hit a street glide in the back, you total it, and it's your fault. We know that's going to be more than $25,000. And we all know that the price of medical bills, lost wages, court costs, court fees are getting, you know, more expensive even as we talk right now. So that $30,000 and that $60,000 could also pose a problem to your current assets and your future income. So it's very important that you, at the minimum, have that liability coverage, not only to be legal, but also to protect those assets and that future income. We haven't even begun talking about the comprehensive and the collision portions of the insurance, which protects your property. You know, whether somebody hits you or you run off the road or a tree, or some other thing, stolen vehicles. But the essential part that I like to bring up is that liability portion there. Along with that liability portion, you know, Tyler was saying if you don't have insurance, there's kind of no monies to withdraw from if somebody hits you, and even though you're not at fault, you don't have insurance. Well, in North Carolina, when you purchase the minimum liability insurance, it comes with uninsured motorists and underinsured motorists. It's a part of the policy that protects you, the policy owner. If you're in an accident, somebody rear-ends you, and we have a third party, and lo and behold, we realize that their insurance is invalid, non-existent. They've been driving with no insurance, or they've caused damage to you that's beyond the insurance that they have. Your insurance company will step in with those amounts and protect you. And then, like Tyler said, they'll go after the other person. So you don't want to be on that side of the liability claim. You want to make sure that you have your liability there, not only protecting your future income, current assets, but you also want that uninsured, underinsured motorist portion of there as well, protecting you who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing by having insurance. And I would wrap this up by saying, you know, liability insurance, you should purchase as much as you think you're worth and able to handle. 30, 60, 25 is the state minimum, but at no means should that be thought of as enough. Everybody's liability is individual to themselves. There's 50, 150, 100, 300, 100. You can go all the way up to $1 million worth of coverage. So your liability coverage should represent your risk threshold. You should purchase as much liability coverage as you can afford.
As an instructor, how do you often approach, or how do you express the importance of insurance?
Well, some people may be surprised, but that's part of our lesson plan, is to speak on insurance a little bit. So you can smile a little bit for that, Mr. Coleman. We sending y'all some people y'all's way, but we're also trying to prevent people from having to use you. You know, as well as you, Tyler, not having to use you, but you do still have to have it by law. I'm a firm believer in, you know, the more seat time that you have, the more riding that you do, it's going to hone your skills better. You don't get experience by sitting there saying, I've had my motorcycle license for 46 years, but you only got 10 miles under your belt. You know, you don't have no experience. You're only going to get that experience through riding, practicing what you preach. Taking some of these courses does help. I do know for sure, I don't know if your company does, Mr. Coleman, or not, but I do know a lot of insurance companies will give you a discount if you have taken a motorcycle safety course. And I don't believe it necessarily has to be MSF. Of course, I'm partial to MSF because that's what I teach. But if you've had any type of training or whatnot, I have heard of some insurance companies. I've actually encountered some when you do track days, as far as actually getting trained on track days. They're looking at as education enhancement, helping bettering your riding skills. So talk to your insurance companies. Now, I might make you upset now a little bit, Mr. Coleman, but I'm going to tell a little secret that I've learned with the insurance companies. Call around, check the different insurance companies, have them work against each other, just sort of like how you do with a car dealership. I have had two identical twins in one of my classes before. It was a BRC2, pretty much the old experienced rider course. They came through, both of them, everything was the same. They were identical twins. They started driving at the same time. They started riding motorcycles at the same time. Driving record was clean. I think they were on the same motorcycle. And they called the insurance company and got two different quotes, two totally different quotes. And, which is kind of crazy. So with that, I tell you, call around, don't call just your big companies, call some of the smaller companies as well. And I know me personally, my wife and I, we will sit there and say, hey, this is what this insurance company will offer us. Can you meet or beat it? And give them that opportunity. We don't try to hide nothing from them. But the insurance is important. Like I said, I ride 45 to 55,000 miles a year, and I'm always teaching the motorcycle courses and classes and stuff. I feel like I'm a very good rider. I know I still have a lot of learning and enhancing my skills, as everyone does. And just last year, the reason I'm on the bike that I'm on now is a deer ran out and hit me. And I had full coverage insurance. I have two other motorcycles that I very rarely ride, but I still keep full coverage insurance on them. Just because you never know what happened. You could be the safest rider out there and have all the skills from the MSF course and have your insurance lowered through the MSF course, but still have someone else hit you, have an animal hit you, or just a freak accident. I think it was last year before last, a guy was riding down the road and got struck by lightning. What's the odds of that? So there's a lot of reasons why you would want to have this insurance. There's a lot of reasons why you would want to have attorneys in your corner, so you can make sure everything's taken care of. But still, try to hone your skills, get your skills up to par, and always trying to nurture them to get better. So hopefully you don't have to use Tyler or Mr. Coleman, but just know who you need to have in your corner and what you need to have done in case that happens.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking as a former insurance investigator and a former insurance adjuster, I know that people do tend to shop around making sure they have the best, because they're not just talking about the insurance on their bike or even on their lives. They're just talking about what to have just in case if there is a need, or they're out of work, or they're injured, or things that are needed for their families or what have you. So they're talking about having that whole umbrella. I've had people even come to me as an insurance adjuster and say, I don't know what to say, what happened in the accident. And that's when I say, well, you need to go talk to an attorney. I'm just the adjuster. I can't tell you what to say, but I will ask you to put me behind the wheel or put me on your bike and tell me what happened. Because in the end, whether you use the insurance agent, you go to school, if something happens and you need rides and you have to have that attorney, you will have those tools in place so they will be able to assist you. It is a big deal to, in my opinion, to have the coverage and understand the proper coverage that's for you, not just for you, but for your family. So there lies the consequences of not having insurance. Unfortunately, there are many consequences that even where you guys have shared that come along with not having, or there were actually individuals that will pull off a lot and really don't have insurance. Like, there are cars out there that don't have insurance. So if you own and ride a motorcycle, let's touch on what happens if you're out there and you don't have insurance in a state that requires it. You can be pulled over. If the database indicates, for example, I had these things happen. If the database indicates, or the police officer database indicates that you don't have insurance, your license can be suspended as well. 100% liable for damage you cause to others in an accident. On and on and on and on. Tyler, are there any issues or examples that would arise from any of these instances that when someone comes and they just say, hey, I need your help, I didn't have insurance?
Sure. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, the criminal consequences of not having insurance are kind of minimal, provided you can just go ahead and put insurance on the bike or on the car, show that to the DA, and they'll understand. All they want you to be is in compliance with that statute. If you don't put it on there, if it goes on long enough, you can face license suspension, license revocation, that sort of thing. But again, it's mostly just the DA wants to see you put insurance on whatever vehicle you have as quick as possible. Report that back to them, and then they're happy to drop those tickets. The biggest consequence is on that civil side, not the criminal. It's when you've been struck by somebody who doesn't have enough insurance or doesn't have any insurance, and now you don't even have what Mr. Coleman was talking about, that underinsured, that uninsured motorist coverage, because that is the stuff that's going to step in when somebody doesn't have enough insurance coverage themselves to compensate you for your injuries, your time out of work, your lost earning potential, property damage, that sort of thing. Motorcycles, we don't feel that they're any more dangerous than driving a car, I should say, but they are more vulnerable. So you're not necessarily any more likely to be in an accident just because you're on a bike, but if you are in a collision, you're going to get more hurt. That's just the nature of riding bikes. We all know that. You don't have the 2-ton steel cage around you. So your injuries are likely going to be more substantial than if you were just in a fender bender, or even if you were in a serious car crash. You don't have the benefit of the airbags and everything. So that underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage is kind of the most important thing from our perspective, because you can't necessarily count on the at-fault driver to have the correct coverage to make sure that you're taken care of. And North Carolina is a very difficult state to pursue someone individually. Insurance companies have those resources to do that. Usually with a private attorney, something like that, you may end up spending more money just pursuing that collections action than you even stand to gain from it. So if you've got the underinsured, the uninsured motorist coverage, you know exactly how much money is going to be available to you for your injuries, your time out of work, et cetera, before you're ever even in a collision. The idea, of course, is to never be in the collision, and that's where Mr. Mitchell comes in. But if you are in the collision, if you've got adequate underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage, that's going to step in, it's going to take care of you. It's going to give us the resources to pursue more easily, just to make sure that you're taken care of. If that coverage isn't there, sometimes it can be a real uphill battle if there's any, resources to attach to it all. One thing that Mr. Mitchell is talking about that I think bears mentioning is deer strike. This is an area where I can't sue a deer. It's really hard to get service or process on them. They move kind of fast. So there is a type of coverage that you can get called medical payments coverage. A lot of insurance companies will sell this to you. It needs to be attached specifically to your bike in North Carolina, but you can purchase it. I mean, I see them typically in the amounts of $2,000 to $5,000, but I know USAA, for instance, will sell it up to $100,000. That medical payments coverage is a contractual obligation with the insurance company that if you present them medical bills, they basically just turn around and hand you money for them up to that coverage limit. So if you get hit by a deer, something like that, somewhere, you have a single vehicle accident, or even you're at fault for a collision and you have medical damages, you can turn around and say, I have this medical payments. They'll turn around, and as long as you can present bills up to that amount of money, they'll turn it over and hand it over to you. It is so simple to get that medical payments coverage that it is actually improper for an attorney to take too high of a fee from it. That's how easy the insurance company makes it to get that stuff. You can flat fee. We can charge you, $100, $200, something like that, but I can't take a full third of it, 40% or whatever the going rate for personal injury attorneys is. It's that simple to get that coverage paid to you. So that's a very important one that comes into play. Again, if you're going to get that coverage, make sure it's applied directly to your motorcycle, because there is a 4-wheel exemption in North Carolina. So if you have it on your car, sometimes you're able to get it. Let's say if you have it on your bike policy, but not your car, and you're in a car wreck, you can get that motorcycle med pay. but it doesn't work the other way around. They'll knock you out on that 4-wheel exemption. That's the important thing to keep in mind. So.
That was a very important fact. I remember sharing that information, Tyler. So that's a very important fact. When people say, "Well, why can't I get this or why can't I get that?" So it works one way, but doesn't work another. You just have to understand how it works. But it's good.
I've been trying to spread some of this information, throughout the classes, and as well as when I'm, speaking at other events and even in general conversation. And you just educated me on some stuff there, Tyler. So with that being said, I'm going to ask that you could at least send some of that information over to Tracy, because I need to make sure that I can get my hands on some of that coverage as well.
Yeah,
I had no idea about that coverage. What I will say too, Tyler, is and Tracy, is a lot of people want to think that all they have to, well, they do only have to have the minimum, but they think that the state is saying that's all that you do need, when in fact you need a lot more. And with that being said, when you go up on the price of what you're getting covered for, it does not add that much to your payment. I mean, sometimes it's $5 to $20 or $25, and I'm like, that's a tank of gas, for a motorcycle. So think about how easily you spend that much money on a regular, and now here you are, you're increasing your insurance by a substantial amount and covering yourself and others as well.
Mr. Coleman may be able to speak a little better on this, but the biggest jumps that you'll see, which Mr. Mitchell is talking about, is if you say a $30,000 to $50,000 or $30,000 to $100,000, you'll see a bump there. But if you have 100 and you go to a 300 or a 500 or $1 million, there's relatively small increases in those premiums. The underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage that we're talking about, just by way of an example, I have not a great driving record. I'll be the first one to tell you that. I have $1 million worth of that coverage available to me. So if I'm ever in a catastrophic injury, or heaven forbid I get killed in a wreck, there's $1 million worth of underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage available. I pay $360 a year for that. It's $1 a day. When I'm ready to pay, $400 for a helmet, whatever I'm paying for a jacket and jeans and boots. I mean, it's one of these things where I understand the argument, I can't afford to have insurance, but in the event of a serious injury, you can't afford not to have that kind of coverage. And it's not really that expensive when you look on a monthly or a weekly or a daily basis like that. It is very affordable.
That is an argument that we hear all the time. And Julia, I want you to chime in on that. I know ScootA here, I hear it's not a month that doesn't go by, hey, I can't afford it, But then what happens when you are asking us to raise funds, have, there's plate sales, there's so many things that's going on because of your need. You just went to a party and paid $25, $30 to get in. So you think about the fact that there's so many ways that I'm, sounding like ScootA a little bit now, probably going to tick some people off, but I'd rather be telling you this now than to be telling you that you're laying in a hospital bed or worse. Your family is sitting there asking us for help, and we don't mind helping, but I like the times that someone doesn't have to contact B.U.D.S Foundation for a need or for assistance. We like that. But the implications of just not having insurance. Julian, what do you think about that?
Yeah, ScootA said something earlier about having insurance and, hoping that you never have to use it. And I agree. I mean, from every product that I sell, from, motorcycle, car insurance to life insurance, unless it's whole life insurance, is totally different. I hope you never have to use, but if it's there and I've had that conversation with you, it's definitely something that you're glad you have. And my question for people are, who say they can't afford to have car insurance or motorcycle insurance or the proper insurance, my question is, can you afford not to? Because of the implications, not only to yourself, but your family, your future income. You're really just setting yourself up for a disaster. And kind of, what Tyler was saying about the initial buy-in for insurance, that first level of insurance that you're buying is going to be the most expensive. But as you go up in insurance, as far as liability coverage, that 5,100 or maybe the 100, 300, all the way up to the 250, 500, or even million and beyond. Those prices don't incrementally go up. They don't exponentially go up. You pay less the more insurance you're buying. And then if you're including that with your homeowner, your auto insurance, and life insurance policy, I mean, it ends up being a holistic type view of your whole entire insurance package that when you break it down and really look at the millions or the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you could save your family, it really breaks down to like, it's kind of a no-brainer for that. So yeah, there's really no excuse not to have the minimum insurance. And again, my recommendation is always have as much insurance as you can afford.
Yeah.
I'll say this too. It's sort of like the old saying, have your money work for you. Make your money work for you. So essentially, what I took from what Mr. Coleman was saying is that I'm going to have my motorcycle protecting my home. My motorcycle's protecting my wages. My motorcycle's protecting me just with the insurance coverage I have on it. So if I don't have enough insurance coverage and I have an accident on the motorcycle, they're not going to be able to come after my house. They're not going to be able to come after my wages because I have enough coverage that my motorcycle is protecting my house. My motorcycle is protecting my wages. Sometimes that's how you got to look at it, is that it's protecting you and the rest of your assets. So, you don't want them to be $10 short and you can't produce the $10 and now they're coming after your house, over $100, $10 or something minimal that you could have easily taken care of with your insurance premiums.
Exactly. And I think just in this short conversation, we cover the facts, about the legalities of not having motorcycle insurance and likewise. So, when it comes to asking how much, this is another question that came through in my email. Well, how much motorcycle insurance is if you don't have it already. Someone asked, how much is it going to cost me? ScootA said earlier about shopping around. The cost of motorcycle insurance depends on a lot of factors. The type of motorcycle you have, what kind of coverage you want, and your driving record. So there's a lot of those examples that come into play that you guys have all just capped on. We already talked about the minimum coverage and liability. Those are some things that will be in my next question. I guess, what we want to kind of summarize and give people these important nuggets today is that when it comes to insurance, it's just important anyway. When it comes to the things that we talk about, it's important anyway. It's important to have it. The old adage, what does it always say? Better to have and not need it than to need and not have it. We've all heard that. So when it comes to these factors, is there anything additional that you guys would like to add regarding the cost, whether it's the legal cost? I'm not just talking about monetary, the consequences someone pays without having insurance coverage. To me, it doesn't matter if you're in a state that requires a helmet or a state that doesn't require a helmet. If your state doesn't require you to have insurance or does or does not require you to have insurance, to me, it's just so important to have that coverage, not just for you, but just for your family. We just love it last week of reaching out and sending a condolence letter to a wife who responded back. She said that she just appreciate the fact that she could reach out to an organization that would call and just give her a listening ear. But the one thing important that she shared with me is that, what I'm glad about is that I didn't have to contact you guys for financial assistance because my husband took very good care of us.
I would always advise folks that run around with no insurance or inadequate insurance. That's not a risk you want to take, because that's one that it can have really, really long lasting consequences for you, or in the worst case, it can have long lasting consequences for your family, the folks that you leave behind if the worst does happen. So yeah, our firm is always big proponents of carrying as much insurance as you can get. We review insurance policies for free to make sure folks are adequately covered, let them know how they could add coverage if they need it, that sort of thing. You don't want to be running around without it. If, on the plaintiff's side, which is when folks are hurt and it's not their fault, I always tell people, you don't pay me, the insurance company does. I take a case without any money up front, knowing that we're going to be able to get a recovery, and that's where the funds will come from at the end. If you're the person who caused an accident, you don't have insurance, defense attorneys do not work that way. They work on a retainer or they work hourly, and it can add up quick. Man, they're not cheap. So that's another thing you don't want to be dealing with. Even if it's a lawsuit where the other person was somewhat at fault, it's something that's not necessarily going to end up panning out where you have to pay. You're still going to need to pay that defense attorney to protect your interests. Whereas if you've got insurance, that's exactly what you pay them for. They have an attorney, their attorneys come in, they protect your interests, they protect your assets, they protect your future earnings. They make sure that you're taken care of, so that, you know, somebody who doesn't have a good claim even isn't able to you know, put a collision on you that's not necessarily your fault, that sort of thing. So that's what I get.
I guess the last thing that I really have is get the seat time, get the training, so that you hopefully don't have to ever use the legal side of it or the insurance. I mean, with these training classes, we do teach, you know, how to be a both offensive and defensive driver, watching out for the other guy so that they don't cause the accident, honing your skills so you don't cause the accident. Because don't forget, a lot of times it's, you know, a single person accident. You know, the motorcyclist is at fault, running off the road, going through a curve too fast and losing the motorcycle. You know, you still might want to claim it on your insurance there, you know. So, you know, it's not always someone else that's at fault. Sometimes it's your own fault. I know we're all adults here. Sometimes you gotta admit, hey, I messed up, you know. Is it enough that I can cover without claiming on my insurance, or am I going to have to claim it on my insurance? So take these classes, take these training courses, whether it be, you know, MSF or another one or at the track, and shop around and get the discounts to see if they're available. Have the paperwork to show them. And with that being said, you know, just take your time, you know, protect yourself, protect other assets that you have. I'm definitely good to go. I think these guys covered it pretty well.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good.
Y'all can feel free to reach out to me individually anytime. The office phone number is 919-615-1185. You can call us at 1-800-321-8968 or motorcyclelawgroup.com. Send me an email, tyler@motorcyclelawgroup.com. We'll review your insurance policies, make sure you're all set. If y'all ride in a club or a riding group or anything like that, I can come out and do a 20, 30, sometimes it goes longer than an hour insurance talk about all this stuff free. We don't try to sell you anything. It's just information that everybody needs to have, and that unfortunately, you know, sometimes you don't get until it's too late. So we'd rather give you an ounce of prevention than a pound of cure. So please contact my office if you ever need anything. Hopefully y'all never need me in a professional capacity, but I'm hoping to see everybody out once this weather turns around. We're out of the dark days and back into riding weather.
So ladies and gentlemen, there you go. You have it. Just a little one-on-one insurance nuggets for this evening. Again, my name is Tracy with B.U.D.S Foundation, Bikers United. It's been a pleasure to have these gentlemen on this episode with us today. And stay tuned for more good information coming from B.U.D.S Foundation, all things community. Take care.